As the editor of a respected national newspaper, are you embarrassed that your article that was printed in your newspaper has not only put colleagues and international colleagues and journalists' lives in danger, but also potentially some of your own employees?
Look, this is a load of nonsense. One, we put a question mark, and we have every right to question a journalist who is based in New Delhi, who comes and breaks the law of Pakistan, because as you know, the government of Pakistan has forbidden foreign journalists to go without permission into FATA. And this gentleman was continuously doing that. We got reports that he was having strange times and meetings with officials whom we have named of the FATA Secretariat and at odd times. So it's not as if everything is unsubstantiated. And I think if we are in a state of war, especially in those areas, and we as Pakistanis have a right to question any foreigner's movement which looks suspicious. And what I find highly ridiculous is that every time we question any of the antics or movements of an American citizen, it is regarded as endangering the life of. I wrote a column in the news for which the American ambassadress tried to stop that column, and this is a well-known public case. She said, I had endangered the life of an American citizen by the name of Craig Davis simply because we had written that he was working for Creative Associates whom Blackwater was protecting in Peshawar, and that he had been deported. And we have the deportation papers to begin with, and that is something that we had said.
Okay, but this isn't just about your rights to question people or to write about anyone. If you let me finish, please, Shireen Mazari, let me just ask you this. This isn't about questioning. We all question. I'm questioning you tonight. But the point is, it's about journalist safety. There are journalists that work for your own newspaper that work in the tribal areas that will have meetings at awkward times. This is a country at war. They will arrange meetings at awkward times. They will arrange meetings that are in secret. And every journalist all over the world does that. I've done that myself, but that doesn't make me a spy.
Yes, but listen, yes, that's true. But if a foreign journalist based in New Delhi comes, he cannot contravene the law. The law requires that he needs to get permission. Why he was going clandestinely, and to say that we should simply not question, and what the hypocrisy. And the Wall Street Journal, by the way, just to set the record straight, never had the courtesy to write to us first to seek our explanation or to give us their objections. Secondly, the so-called international group that has signed this letter to Cairo is primarily American and British with one or two other. So it's not international in the sense it's not a global representation. Let's get that fact out of the way. The fact of the matter is that they have not denied the assertions we made in the story. Nobody has countered those assertions on the part of the Wall Street Journal or the reporter in question. And by the way, we carried the reporter's point of view. He said, yes, he had known these people, he had met them. He said he wasn't doing anything wrong, but he was breaking the law of the country. So are the Americans telling us that American citizens and journalists can contravene any law that exists of the country?
You're an editor of a newspaper. If a journalist that works for you wanted to go abroad and try and uncover a story, journalists do this the world over to uncover stories.
He'd be arrested in America if he did anything like this. He would probably be arrested.
No, but you won't be called a spy and endanger lives. Are you saying, we all know that the Daniel Pearl case, that he was named a spy and he was beheaded?
I'm not interested in the Daniel Pearl case. That has nothing to do with me, but this gentleman was based in New Delhi. He is not based in Islamabad, and he should have obeyed the law of the land. And if they had a problem with our report, they should have told us first. But let's not forget what has happened. And you know, there is a history of American journalists misbehaving in Pakistan. Look at the case of Nicholas Schmidl at the Institute of Strategic Studies, came as a researcher, then claimed he was a reporter when he was caught in a sensitive area in Balochistan. Eventually, he had to be deported. Look at the case of
let's talk about Nicholas Schmidl, because you used to work with him. Let's talk about Nicholas Schmidl. You used to work with him at the Institute of Strategic Studies.
Yes.
Now
he was
deported immediately by the intelligence agencies and the police themselves. He wasn't, and so what I'm trying to say is that Matthew Rosenberg, if he was a spy, presumably the authorities would have dealt with him, and not a newspaper calling him a spy. And by the way, you mentioned that you're claiming that where he lives perhaps makes him a spy, or insinuates that he is working for a foreign agency. He lives in New Delhi because he's a South Asia correspondent.
That is an assumption that you are drawing. And the unfortunate part of the Pakistani media is that when a Pakistani journalist, Voice of America, goes to the US, he gets arrested for 3 months. I don't see the Pakistani media making much of it. What happens when Ansar Abbasi, a senior investigative journalist, is labeled a Taliban by the New York Times? Did anybody in our media or the American media take up his cause? What happened when Fawad Shah, he's the one who broke the story on Blackwater in Peshawar, had to leave Pakistan because he was under threat from the Americans for breaking the story? He went into hiding, he went to Iran, then he escaped to Armenia. He's only now come back and finally decided that he better go public rather than be killed quietly, which is what may have happened to him. So let's look at the hypocrisy of it all. And this is ridiculous. Basically what the message is being sent to us is, if it's an American citizen, whether he's a journalist or anybody else, he can do what he likes and we should not question what he's doing.
No,
I'm sorry,
as a Pakistani,
if I feel somebody is doing something wrong,
you're perhaps not understanding the distinction I'm making. If you had printed an article saying this man has broken the law and entered FATA, that's one thing. But to call him a spy when we all know that the Taliban are beheading people, local foreign journalists are being killed every day. 8 journalists in Pakistan were killed last year.
No, so are you trying to tell us that we should accept whatever the Americans do because they may be in danger? Why is he going into areas where he's not supposed to go without permission?
Do you have written evidence of Matthew Rosenberg being a spy or links with CIA
in the paper, and incidentally, no, we had a question mark on our headline, that is he a spy? Now, if he is, obviously there is some problem there that the guy has, because we had put a question mark, and I suggest that you read the news story. There was a big question mark on it. But look what you have to look at what the journalists are doing in Pakistan, the foreign journalists. I have a whole case list here. Look at Christina Lamb.
You mentioned about representation of all international organizations. Al Jazeera, Al Anstey also signed this letter, which I've actually got in front of me. Al Jazeera's journalists have also been labeled as working for Al Qaeda.
No, the point of the matter is that when Pakistani journalists are abused, nobody takes it up. When an American citizen who breaks the law of the land, we should pardon him because he's a journalist. You are not listening to my point that Americans in Pakistan, especially journalists, have done all sorts of antics, and I'm trying to tell you, but you don't want to listen. Christina Lamb arrived, she was deported because she booked a flight in the name of Osama bin Laden. 2 French journalists, is this honest? They come and they hire somebody to pose as Taliban just to get the story that they want. Did anybody say anything? No. In July 2009, which is earlier this year, a group of Americans with diplomatic passports are caught.
I've read that article several times, and that's exactly what I am.
Yes, and
incidentally, every editor from every major news channel or newspaper in the world thinks, so perhaps we're all on the same page and you're not.
The world does not comprise of Britain and America and maybe 1 or 2 Al Jazeera journalists. The world is a larger place.